Hey, you made it. Thank you so much for stopping by to check out this video. And we're going to get into this video, but I've got just a little bit of a disclaimer that I want to throw at the beginning of this, because I've said it in the past and I think people are missing that section of the video. Basically, what I want to say is this. We've spent a lot of time on this channel, more than 200 videos, in fact, talking about Docker and Docker containers and Docker solutions and self-hosting and that sort of thing. And I want to be very transparent in that just because I review a container or a service or whatever doesn't in any way mean that it's actually going to make it into my production setup. There are lots and lots of containers that I review that I'm only doing it because I think it's kind of interesting, but not because I actually find it useful for myself. When people ask me, hey, how did you handle this situation? A lot of times I didn't handle that situation. I learned enough about the container to learn how to install it, learn the basics of it, and then share it with you guys. So there's actually a very small number of containers that I'm actually, I would say, super knowledgeable about, if we wanted to go as far as to say that. But most of the containers I review, I just take a look at how to get them installed, what they do and how to use them, just enough to make the video, and then eventually I'll get around to scrapping that Proxmox container or VM. But I just wanted to be transparent about that. Just because I make a video about a container or a service or something doesn't in any way mean that I'm actually going to use it in the long run. Even when I've said in videos that I will be using it, oftentimes that ends up not being the case because I found a different solution after I've made that statement in my video. So I just wanted to get that at the beginning of this video so that there's no confusion as we're kind of going through some things. So we've got quite a bit to cover in this video. Basically, what I want to cover in this video is the stuff that actually made it into my production setup. We've actually got like 4 different pieces of hardware we're going to take a look at services on. One of them is my test/demo server, so we're not going to go too much into that, but I do want to kind of show the hardware that we're going to be talking about real quick. So I've already recorded kind of what's going on back here, just a couple minute clip. I'm going to throw that in right now, and then we're going to come back and take a look at what is on each of those different devices. Okay, so this is my server rack. We've taken a look at this in the past, but I just wanted to identify a couple of things so that we know what we're dealing with in the rest of this video. So basically right here is my Synology DS1621XS Plus. We'll take a look at that in further detail later. Over here on the bottom, this is this is the TrigKey S5. That's what that one is. This is basically, we're going to call this ProxProd 1. And that is what's going on here. If we come up, I know I'm bouncing around a little bit, but this Ace Magic is ProxProd 2. Down back here on top of ProxProd 1, we've got our Proxmox dev or testing server. It's a Camrui AK1 or 2, I don't remember. And then up here we've got this other Ace Magic right here. This is the 8008, and I don't recommend this device. I originally made some content about it, and then other reviewers found out that this shipped with malware on it. So super unhappy about that. I'll try to link resources about that in the description, but that's currently running one of my Plex servers. And that's all going to get changed out. In fact, a lot of this is going to get changed out, but we'll talk about that later. And then if we come down, there's another NAS back there that is currently shut off. It is not being used. And if we come down a little farther, I've got a TerraMaster F5221 that is currently the backup server for my Synology. That'll probably change at some point, but that's kind of where things are with that. And then over here, this Raspberry Pi is not doing anything. It's not even on. And then I've got another TerraMaster device over there. That's the F2243. And that is one of my other Plex servers. So I've actually got 2 Plex servers there, but that is kind of what's going on here in the rack as far as hardware that'll be hosting the services that we're going to talk about in this video. Okay, so the first device that we're going to take a look at the services on is my Synology DS1621XS Plus. I've had it the longest. I've had the most stuff on it, but we're not going to take a deep dive on everything on this device. because there are things on here that the YouTube gods will probably smite me for. So we're just going to do kind of a wink wink kind of thing here, and then we're going to move on. So let's jump over to my desktop and take a look at what I'm actually hosting on my Synology device. Okay, so here we are. We're on my desktop. This is my Synology. Well, this is Portainer on my Synology device. And of course, we can probably just go ahead and skip this one because we're looking at Portainer right here. This is that installation, so we're just going to skip that. I've made lots of content about Portainer in the past. If you're not familiar with it, I encourage you to get familiar with it. It's a great tool. I've actually started using Dockage more than that, though, for certain things, just because it's more dumbed down, and I mean that totally respectfully. I really dig Dockage, but I've been using Portainer on this setup for so long, I don't feel the need to change it. But the first thing that we can see up here is Tautulli. Now, I've got this attached to my Plex server. In fact, if we jump over here, this just tells, it's just a dashboard for my Plex server. I think this is only the second or third time I've even ever logged into it, because I've actually got it set up to work with a homepage so that I can see on my homepage dashboard what's playing on any given TV or device or whatever. This just gives me an idea of what's going on. So that's all I'm using Tautulli for, is just so I can have this little block right here on my homepage dashboard. And since we're here, let's talk about homepage a little bit. I'm pretty sure I've actually made a video about this in the past. And when I originally made that video, I wasn't super keen on it because it required setting up different YAML files for different parts of the page and all that sort of thing. But then something in my brain clicked, and I realized I didn't have to constantly maintain it. I've got it set up as it is right now so that I can get a quick glance at everything going on my network. Whether it's my ISO accumulation over here, speed test running, Uptime Kuma, my Omada controller, I can get an idea of what's going on with it. Again, Portainer, my 3 different Proxmox servers, ProxProd1, ProxProd2, and my dev server, my testing server, as well as a Proxmox backup server. I can get all of that information. It's all right here at a quick glance, so I don't have to go around digging around different things to find what I'm looking for. So that's why I'm using homepage. It's actually, when I open Chrome, it is my homepage. But I've made content about, I think, everything we're going to cover in this video. So definitely be sure to check those out if you're interested in more information about any of these different services. But yeah, this is just a quick dashboard that I use just so I can get a quick glance at everything all at once and not have to dig around. So that's what's going on here with homepage. Next, we've got Uptime Kuma. Lewis Lamb is the developer of this, and Dockage that we mentioned earlier. I don't have this filled out nearly as in-depthly as I should, but I like having this here. I get notifications about certain things. If something goes offline, I get a notification from Uptime Kuma letting me know that a service has gone offline. That said, I really do need to fill this out in more detail to get better data. I threw it together once and I haven't really touched it since, but I've added new services. So everything is always a work in progress when you self-host. Next we've got, we're going to skip that one because that one will probably get me smited or smote or whatever by the YouTube algorithm. Next, we've got Adguard Home Sync, and that's because I've got 2 different instances of Adguard running, and if I change settings on one of them, I want it to go to the other one automatically, and that's what Adguard Home Sync does. I know I've made content about this, but it just runs in the background. I, for the longest time, didn't even know that this had a dashboard, but it does, and it tells you, hey, it did a synchronization from this to that at this time, and I dig that. I like being able to see this. In fact, we can see the 2 IP addresses up here that the original and the replica, but that's Adguard Home Sync. I really dig it. It's one of those silent services that just runs in the background and serves its purpose without being intrusive. So that's why I've got it. I really dig it. Next we've got Organizr, and of course I'm not logged in. Why would I be? There we go. So this dashboard I've had up and running probably the longest of all of the different dashboards I've ever used. And honestly, it's because I set it up once and it was kind of a complex setup. But this gives me an idea of the shows that I'm following and that sort of thing. Lets me know when they're going to be available for me. And of course, over here, I've got other stuff and I can just kind of click around. I don't know if these actually, so some of these actually work. I have updated this somewhat recently, I guess. But yeah, I've got all my bookmarks over here on the left for stuff that I want to do. And then, I can just kind of get an idea of what's going on here. This is one of those services that eventually I will probably scrap because I rarely ever use it. It used to be my homepage, like when I opened up my browser, but homepage took over that, and I just haven't done much with this in a really, really long time. So I'm not sure what I'm actually going to do with this, but it's sentimental, maybe. I don't know, but it's there, and that's what's going on with homepage. It's another one of those landing pages that you can configure to just have all of your stuff in one general area, and I kind of dig it, but not enough to do much with it lately. Okay, so that is basically everything that I can talk about that I'm currently hosting on my Synology device in Docker. So I think with that said, since I've already got this up and in my next tab, let's actually take a look at my Proxmox demo server. Just so we'll just run through it real quick and we'll just take a quick look at it. And then we'll actually jump into my other two Proxmox production servers. So let's jump over here. This is my dev server. It's currently on Proxmox VE 8.1.4. I'm sure there's an update for that I just haven't applied yet. But basically, I've got a template when I want to try a new Docker container or solution or whatever. I've already got a Docker container. That sounds weird, but it's a Proxmox container that I've already got Docker pre-installed on, so that I can just clone it. I can just right-click, click clone, fill out the relevant information. Minute or two later, I've got my new Proxmox container that I can then drop a Docker service or container or whatever in and test it out here. And that's what I've been doing on this device for a really long time. And it just gives me a chance to quickly deploy something, check it out, see if I want to continue using it. And then and of course, this is actually where, when you're watching my tutorials, it actually happens on this server. There's a little bit of trivia or something. So yeah, that's all this server does, is it gives me a place to tinker around with different services and stuff, just to see if it's something that I want to either make a video about or actually throw onto a production server. But yeah, let's actually, let me come back over to here real quick. We're gonna go to summary. We're going to give it a second. So yeah, basically 4 cores, 4 threads. I think this is got an N100 processor in it, 16 gigs of RAM, and then I've got remote storage attached to this. That's why it's showing almost 40 terabytes of storage. This has only got like a 250 or 512 gig boot drive and like a 1 terabyte SSD in it. So everything else has been pulled in for this number right here from remote storage. So that's all this server's for, is just for testing and tutorial purposes. Okay, so now that we've taken a look at my testing demo server, my tutorial server, whatever you want to call it, let's actually jump over to my desktop again and take a look at my first Proxmox production server, the stuff that I actually have services up and running for either myself or even for you guys for different purposes. Let's go ahead and take a look at that now. So here we are. This is ProxProd 1, and it is also running on PVE 8.1.4. I'm sure there's an update for that I just haven't done yet. And I don't know if it's worth my time just yet, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. But basically, this is an actual AMD processor, I believe, with 8 cores, 16 threads, 32 gigs of memory, and of course, the 500 gig boot drive, a 1 terabyte SSD, and then I've got remote storage on this for the backups. That's where another one of those terabytes are coming from. Maybe this is a 256 gig boot drive, a 1 terabyte SSD, and a 1 terabyte backup on my Proxmox backup server. I think that's how we're getting that total there. But this has been up and running for a while. I know somewhere on here it tells me, uptime, 64 days, right there. Yeah, so it's been up for a while, been running rock solid, no issues with it whatsoever. So basically, if we come over to the left, we can see all of the different things I've got running. This has also got one of those templates in there that I can just clone and deploy something very quickly. Or if I've already got something set up and running on my dev server that I just want to transfer over, I can run a backup of it to my backup server and then restore it here and just have it up and running in no time at all. But I've got a couple of different options on how I can deploy things. So we're just going to skip over that. I do want to eventually make a video talking about how I use these templates in more of a dedicated kind of fashion to talk about in more depth. But That's not why we're here. So let's come back up. We're going to take a look. This 100 3D prints is actually a service that used to be called Van Dam. I made a video about that, but now it's called Manifold. Basically, it's a place to upload your 3D print files so that you can have a place like a repository for them, and then you can come in here and you can open these up. Maybe open. Come on, there we go. And then we can actually get a full 3D. Oops. Oh, geez, that's not what I meant to do there at all. Let's put you back. But then, you can spin these around and actually look at them. I kind of wish you could zoom out, but you can't. So let's come back. Let's take a look at another one. Maybe Cube. Yeah, this was a test print that I did. But again, this is one of those that you can just spin around and take a look at what the full print looks like. Again, this is called Manifold, but it used to be called Van Dam. Next we've got DB Tech, which is the wiki. I've had this container up in some capacity for a really, really long time. This was one of the first services that I ever made publicly available to the community, so that I could put in, scripts for Docker containers and for Chasm and Casa OS. All of that stuff is here. This is done on BookStack, and it's been rock solid for the entire time I've had it up. And I'm actually a really big fan of BookStack because of how easy it is to use. But again, this is one of those public services that are available to you guys if you want to check it out. I'll try to have links to everything in the video description down below if I can remember all of the different things. So next, we've got code.dbtech. And it's just Lenpaste. It's a Pastebin clone that's been up and running for a while. It was down for a while, and it was up for a while, and it got moved for a while, and it got moved back to GitHub for a while. There's been a lot of weird stuff going on with this. So when all of that started happening is when I made my video about Hasty Paste. But then this came back up, and the dev put everything back on GitHub, and it's been great since then. So Lenpaste for the win, in my opinion, as far as Pastebin clones are concerned. That's what I've got up and running here. Next we've got Memos, which is a note-taking application that you can see I use every once in a while, like when we're doing live streams and that sort of thing. I'll drop in here and take notes during the live stream and that sort of thing. Big fan, actually, of Memos. It's very easy to use, and it's just a quick glance. You can see what's going on. But this is not the only note-taking application that we're going to see today. But Memos is a great little service. Again, I've made a video about this if you want to check it out. I will say that it has changed a bit since that video, so I might have to make an update video to it. Next, we've got LinkStack. This is kind of a link tree alternative. In fact, we can see that this container freaked out earlier. I don't know how long it was down, but it was still, and I couldn't have got any information from it regarding Uptime Kuma because it was still registering as being up. But here we can see that the CPU was pegged out. My RAM, I had 512 megs of RAM allocated to this. It was capped out. It was down for all intents and purposes, but it wasn't. So I rebooted it and I threw some more RAM at it, and that was just 20 minutes ago or something. So so here we've got LinkStack. Again, this is kind of a link tree alternative. So if we do like you can kind of get this and build your own profile page with all of your different stuff here. This service is also publicly available. If you want to create your own profile on here, you absolutely can. That's what it's there for. But that's what LinkStack is. This is again on my Proxprod 1. And then next we've got fans. Let's come over here. Let's get that in the right order. This is my dbtech.fans. This is built on Ghost. I have basically shut it down back in like January. I just couldn't deal with it at the moment. And it was shortly after this that I was hospitalized for a month. So anyway, dbtech.fans, built on Ghost because Ghost is first and foremost a subscription-based service so that you can have people sign up for access to different things, that sort of thing. And you can have price tiers and price structures in that. I've also made a video about this if you want to check that out, but it runs really well, and I really dig it. I may bring it back at some point when my brain space is better, but probably not quite yet. Next, we've got HedgeDoc. I use HedgeDoc a lot. Like when I write scripts for things, I use HedgeDoc. And if we jump over to here, here's everything you can see that I've got up in here, and just old scripts, new scripts, all kinds of different stuff going on in here. And it's a cool way to take notes. You can click on like new note. It splits it into like your markdown editor, and then in real time over here, you can see what it's going to look like. You don't have to do it that way. You can say, I just want to be in writing mode, or I just want to be in viewing mode, or you can split the difference. I feel like these two icons need to be reversed, but again, not the point of this video. HedgeDoc's very cool. You know, I can say, this is a test. Oops, test, and then drop a line, and then, oops. Test, right? Actually, that should be like that. No, it should be like that. There we go. But very easy to use. It's actually helped me learn Markdown a little bit, so that's cool. But I use this one a lot, like when I'm writing scripts, that sort of thing. It works better for my brain than Memos does. So this is what I use. Let's see, what do we have next? Next we got our template. We talked about templates. We're going to talk about templates in a different video entirely. Video vote. So I actually launched this back in like January, February, I think it was January. And it's just kind of a community-based thing where you can come in here and make a recommendation. And if other people are interested in that, they can give it an upvote or a downvote. And this kind of gives the community an idea of what kind of content might be best suited for making other videos about. Unfortunately, because of my health issues earlier this year and recovering for the first quarter of this year, I haven't had a chance to do anything with any of the suggestions here. But I plan to jump in here and take a look and actually start making content about some of the stuff that you guys have requested. This is videovote.dbtech.com. Again, I'll have this linked in the video description. But I would actually like to start using this more frequently to get input from you guys as far as what I should make content about. So this is actually a Fider, Fider. I've made a video about this. That video bombed, and I get why. But now that I've actually used it, I still kind of get why, because it's definitely a community-driven thing. But Fider is a very cool product, a little Docker container, and I dig it. So if you're interested in that, again, links to most everything will be in the video description. Let's see. Next, we've got DB Tech Reviews. So this, I was actually using a third-party hosting service. Ionos was where this lived for a really, really long time, but I couldn't upgrade it anymore, or I couldn't update it to the newest versions because my server on Ionos was too old. Huge catastrophe of a situation, but it encouraged me to move this off of a third-party service that I'm paying for and just bring it in-house, and it loads crazy fast. I'm super happy with everything as far as how it loads. None of this is being sped up. All of this is in real time. It looks like I've got some duplication issues in here I need to fix, but this is WordPress, newest version. I think I just updated it the other day, and I've always been a big fan. I've been a big fan of WordPress for more than a decade. Let's put it that way. So most of my websites like this get built in WordPress. So. And then last here we've got URLs. This is a link shortener that was also on Ionos that I moved. I've made a video about URLs, but I don't want to show stats and that kind of stuff here. So just take my word that URLs works very, very well on here. The last thing we've got here is Adguard Home, and there that is. I just recently cleared out my stats because something went bonkers down here and I had a response time of like 8 seconds that was driving me nuts. So I just cleared everything out. But there you go. That's what's going on there. And that effectively is my Prod 1, my first Proxmox production server and everything that's running on it. So I think with that said, let's jump over to my desktop again and take a look at Prod 2. Okay, so this is what I call Prod 2. This is also an N100 device with 4 cores and 4 threads, which is why we're only seeing 4 CPUs right here. Again, 16 gigs of RAM though, which I guess is what the N100 caps out at. And again, we've got a terabyte of SSD, a 256 gig boot drive, and a terabyte for backup over on the backup server. So that's what's going on here. This one's also been up for 64 days. And it's been rock solid. So let's actually take a look at what we've got going on here. The first one we've got is Adguard, which if we jump over here again, This has been up and running for a while. Again, I also cleared the stats on this because I had an upstream DNS go bonkers on me, and it was like an 8-second response time at some point. So I cleared it out because I wanted to see the lower numbers, if I'm being completely honest. But again, just Adguard Home. It's always nice to have a couple of them up and running. In case one goes down, you've got another one, so your internet doesn't tank. Because if you've got everything pointed to like Adguard or Pi-hole or whatever, and you take your Adguard or Pi-hole offline, it'll tank your internet. You won't be able to connect to anything until you change your DNS or bring your Adguard or Pi-hole back up. So I always like to have 2 of those running just to make sure that my internet is always up and running. Next, we've got a password manager. I use Vaultwarden for that, but I'm not going to show you that. But I do have Vaultwarden up and running. It works really well. It was one of the first things I self-hosted after Plex, and it's been amazing. I absolutely love Vaultwarden, and it's on here. So next, we've got our speed test, which is this one right here. And this is, I like to know what's going on here. Again, I don't really ever log into this. I like having this so that on my homepage dashboard, it will tell me in real time what my latest speed test was, what my latest ping was, that sort of thing. So this is another one of those silent services that I just have running in the background for the sake of having the information pulled over into a dashboard. But this is what it looks like. I made a video about this, but it changed. I may make another video about this just because I really do dig this service. And again, I like being able to import this data into my dashboard. Let's see, next we've got Matomo. I made a video about this. Again, it didn't do well, and I get why. But I've used it for a couple of things, just for testing purposes. I was curious, and here we can kind of get a rough idea of where most of my traffic has been coming from for the last month or so, it looks like. And it kind of gives me a general idea of what's going on, but it does obfuscate IP addresses to a certain degree. It only gives me enough of the IP address to know the location, but the last couple of octets, or at least the very last octet of the IP, gets a 0 thrown on it so that I don't actually know the IP address of anybody visiting any of my stuff. I just like to see kind of what's going on, where views are coming from, that sort of thing. That's all this is here for. If you're interested in this, again, there's a video that I made about Matomo, and it wasn't any different now than it was when I made that video, as far as the installation process is concerned. And then the last thing I've got a template on here, just like I always do on my Proxmox setups. The last thing I've got on here is actually an actual VM, a virtual machine, and that's for ActivePieces. And that's what's going on here. I made a video about this that I was really happy with. That did actually fairly well. And I've done, obviously, you can see a bunch of testing here. Really, the only flow that I'm using right now is this one. So when I post a YouTube video, there's a whole flow that it goes through. It's like, hey, when there's a new video, create a tweet, create a Mastodon, and also share it with my Discord. And then wait, I think 7 hours or something, and then create a tweet, create a Mastodon, and then wait a certain number of hours and create a tweet and create a Mastodon post, just so I can kind of automate those. Like, hey, I made a video, and I don't have to remember to go post that stuff or use a third-party paid service to remind me to do it's. I really dig the automated process that I've got set up here with ActivePieces. It skipped my brain for a minute, but this is how I make sure that when I post a video, it gets posted to most of the social medias. I still have to do Facebook manually because I hate their API setup process. It is literally just easier for me to copy what got posted to Twitter over to Facebook, and it just gets posted there once and we're done. Now, I know I mentioned earlier, like when we took a look at the actual hardware in here, I know I mentioned that I had 2 different Plex servers up and running. We're not going to get into that in this video because of a couple of reasons. One of them is just Plex server installed on a Windows machine, which is this one right here. It's that 8008 that had the malware on it. And then I've also got a TerraMaster device that I've got Plex running on that is just the TerraMaster app version of Plex. So there's nothing fancy about either of those installations, so I don't feel like they're worth talking about in this video. But I do have that set up and running so that I do have media streaming and that sort of thing. But that is basically the gist of all of the stuff that I'm actually hosting here on my servers. I know these videos typically get made like December, January, kind of that time frame. but I missed the mark, and I am unfashionably late to the party yet again. So hopefully you found this video interesting. Maybe you saw some stuff in here that you missed the original video on, that you want to go take a look at or get more information on. Again, I'll try to have everything linked in the video description, but we covered quite a few things, so I don't know how much I'll be able to get down there. Maybe what I'll do is I'll just make a post and link to that post. Maybe that's the easiest way to do it. But yeah, that is what I'm hosting here in my server. And part of this is because I wanted to share it with you guys, but also I wanted to have something documented because there are going to be some changes coming to my rack here very soon. In fact, there's a little box right there behind my thumb. Noctua sent me a care pack for an upcoming project that I've got. Just so you guys know, the folks at 45 Drives are sending me an HL15. I should have it in the next few weeks. And so there will be some content about that. I can say that I've watched several other HL15 videos that other creators have made, and I'm getting something a little bit different based on what I've seen anyway. I don't want to talk about it right now. I want that to be a surprise for when it gets here. But just know that a lot of this stuff is going to get consolidated into that HL15 at some point after I'm done with the initial playing with it, right? So part of this is for you guys, but part of this is also for me so that I can come back and reference some things as I need to. So again, hopefully you found this video helpful, informative, entertaining, something. If you did, do me a favor, give the video a thumbs up, maybe consider subscribing if you haven't already. If you'd like to support the channel more than that, you don't have to, obviously, but you can become a channel member. I don't recommend it, honestly. YouTube takes a huge cut of channel memberships. But you can also become a Patreon and get early access to my content when it's available. Also, those videos for early access never have any ads on them. No ad placement for if somebody buys an ad spot. No Google ads, no YouTube ads, whatever. Just ad-free, straight to the point. And you can support over on Patreon for as little as $1 a month to get that perk. So I think with all of that said, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. I do want to thank you guys for spending a few minutes of your day with me today, and I'll talk to you in the next video.